Hi guys, welcome back to the crazy life with the DeVores Wild fam. My name is Rebecca. Welcome to my channel. I am a mom of 7 kids, 6 living at home. We have a 21-year-old who lives in California. We have a 16-year-old, a 15-year-old, 13-year-old, 12-year-old, almost an 11-year-old, and a 7-year-old. So if you're new to my channel, I usually post some frugal meal ideas or how we shop, just things that we do to save money in a large family. Today's video is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to be talking about mental health. Now, I made a mental health video last week and I asked you guys if you would be interested in seeing it. I was on the fence about posting it because I didn't want to put something so personal out there that involves my children. So I've decided not to post that video because I did get way too personal. However, I am still glad I made that video because even though I'm not posting it, it was very therapeutic for me. But we are going to talk about mental health. I'm just going to be more vague in how I am saying things. So with that being said, I do not have to be vague about myself because this is my channel and I am 44 years old. I will be 45 at the end of this month. I have been diagnosed with bulimia and anorexia. I've had an eating disorder since I was 14 years old. Still is an addiction problem for me. The way sometimes I cope with my stress is I turn to food. So either I will overeat with the intention of getting rid of it or abusing laxatives, or I will not eat. And so it's usually a cycle for me of I'll not eat. I'll eat just enough so that I'm not passing out. And then I will get so hungry that after a few weeks then I overeat and then the bulimia cycle would start up again. I have been to I don't know how many therapists, and then 3 years ago I put myself in an outpatient treatment facility, which helped me tremendously, gave me the right tools finally to overcome that addiction. With that being said, I'm not going to lie, sometimes I still do struggle, although it is much easier to get back on track. I have learned so many good skills and tools to know that I don't need to do those behaviors anymore. And I also was diagnosed over the summer with ADHD. I have to take that back. I haven't got an official diagnosis. I need to get myself tested to get it on paper. But the doctor, ADHD, and he said he's like 97.99% sure that I am on the autism spectrum as well, where it would be very high functioning. Now, because of my age, so I was in elementary school during the 80s, high school during the 90s, there wasn't a lot of information about autism or ADHD. People didn't talk about anxiety back then. People talked about depression, and I think, I remember the kids when I was in elementary school that were hyper were the ones that always got sent to the principal's office, or they were always in trouble. So when the doctor said, you have ADHD, I was like, well, I don't think so because I can sit still. And that's when I learned that ADHD, like autism, is a wide spectrum, and that's like saying you can't have autism unless you're like the Rain Man. So my ADHD is my brain never shuts off, which in turn causes me to overworry, causes a lot of anxiety, which would cause me to turn to food to cope with those things. So I've learned all these things. I am currently taking Adderall. I was on Zoloft for a little while. I'm currently not taking that, but I still am taking the Adderall. And it really does help my brain to slow down, helps me to stay more calm and focused. My ADHD is more of, I get kind of OCD tendencies with the way things need to be in the house, everything needs to be in a certain place, or if something's not where it should be, I would tend to get over anxious because it would just create this, if everything's not perfect what I'm looking at, then it's reflecting the way I'm feeling on the inside, which was a horrible feeling. So the Adderall really helps me with that. So if there's some messes going on or there's dishes in the sink, and hello, I've got 6 kids and my house is not going to stay clean 24/7, it really helps to keep that in check, that it's okay, people live here. It doesn't mean that the world's gonna end, because there's a shoe on the ground. Like, seriously, it would be like one thing and I'd be like, ugh, my life is over. So it has really helped me with that. So my youngest I can talk about, she is 7. She is autistic, and it is not high functioning. She's got learning disabilities. She has ADHD. She's driven like she's got a motor in her, so she's hard to sit still. She can have some aggressive behaviors. They are not to be mean. They are just, she has no sense of self, so it feels like her limbs aren't attached to her body, is the way they explained it to me. So it makes her movements very hard, like when she sets things down or sits down. She is on medication as well, and medication for her has been a game changer. She's writing her name now. She's starting to learn sight words. She is almost 8, but she's about 3 years delayed. So all these things that she's learning would be something like you would learn in kindergarten, 1st grade, but she's just now learning them now. She's becoming more independent. We still struggle with potty training, especially the bowel movements are especially tricky for her. It's kind of a catch-22 because the medicine that she is on constipates her. So we don't always give it to her. It's kind of like the Adderall. I don't have to take it every day because it works right away. So sometimes on the weekends, if we have nowhere to be or nothing to do, I'll just, not put her on it, and she will be a little bit harder, but, she also eats better. Her appetite's more when she is not on the medication. Same for myself. That was the only concern the doctor had putting me on Adderall because of my eating disorder history. He was afraid that, because it can tend to make you lose weight at first, he was a little bit nervous about that. But because I've been to outpatient and I know to track my feelings, not my food, but my feelings when I eat, it's really helped. And because I got into such a habit of, I need to have a snack, even if I'm not hungry, I need to have a snack. I cannot do intermittent fasting or anything like that. It does not work for my brain because it will just make me I'm just not going to eat at all. Yes, I do have days where I get really busy, or I've taken the Adderall a little bit too late, and I'm like, whoo, there was a video where I opened up a yogurt, and it ended up being gross because I let it sit there for too long because I totally forgot that I was supposed to eat that. I did lose some weight on the Adderall. It wasn't anything big, so I just tell myself, okay, I know I don't feel hungry and thirsty too. It kind of makes you not want to drink either, but I just make myself, and it becomes a habit to do those things. So it's helped me tremendously. I have a son that just got put on, I have 2 sons now that just got put on some ADHD medications, and my husband as well got put on it. And so because I've been taking it, I tell them, you have to make yourself eat. It does it to Kennedy too, but because she's so young, I'm able to control that better. So I just tell them, make sure you're eating even if you're not hungry. So far it's worked out. So I can't get into too much detail about my kids, but I will tell you the mental illnesses that we are dealing with in my family that live here. So every single one of my kids has some special needs. We have autism, and I just found out yesterday that 2 more of my kids, and I have appointments set up to have them tested, are most likely on the spectrum as well. All of my kids have ADHD in one form or the other. And I know a lot of people think that is overdiagnosed, that diet plays a huge role, and I agree. that diet does play a huge role, and I'll be the first one to admit that my kids have a crappy diet. Seems like the older they get, the harder it's been to control what they are putting in their bodies. I have 2 of them. If they could eat nothing but top ramen and Takis, they totally would. So I realize that I need to be stricter about those things, but I don't think the doctors were overdiagnosing it, because I have struggled since they were little, and I always thought that I could never understand why some parents or moms, because part of my anxiety would be to compare myself to others, and not even talking about social media. Like, I'd be at the store with all of my kids, and I'm like, how come I see other moms at the store with as many kids and they can do it, like their kids weren't running amok, but mine were, and it would make me feel like a terrible parent, like I wasn't parenting right. I was always afraid people were judging me. Well, it turns out because my kids' brains are all wired very differently, and a lot of it is genetic. It runs on my husband's side as well, and a lot of it is environmental, so they were picking up habits that I wasn't even realizing that I was putting out there. And I'm learning through therapy myself that just because that happens, I don't need to feel like I'm a bad mom because they might have picked up habits. I'm just doing the best that I can do, and I'm human, so it's hard. I mean, your kids pick up your good habits too, or like your morals and stuff as well. So I am reading the 4 Agreements. That book's been a life changer because it's helped me realize that my reality might not be somebody else's reality, and vice versa. And if somebody is saying to me, oh, you're a bad mom, I'm learning that no, I'm not a bad mom. That just might be their reality. That might be how maybe they're seeing themselves, but it's not my reality. I do want my older kids to read it. I think it would be very helpful. If you've never read it, it's called The 4 Agreements. It's a cheap book. You can get it on Amazon. I'm sure you can get it from the library. I can't tell you the author's name because I forgot, but it's a good book. So we have ADHD, every single one of my kids, my husband, and myself. So a lot of times with ADHD, you get that rejection fear, like you just don't like to be told how to do things, or if somebody tells you, even if they're very sincere and nice about it, like, oh, hey, you know, you didn't wash this dish right, it becomes this huge, like, oh my goodness, like, I am a failure because I left this little spot on the dish, and I'm just, and when ADHD, because everybody's on a different level of it, that's a lot. So just right there, autism and ADHD, that's a lot to deal with 6 kids and your husband having it and yourself having it. And the doctor actually told me yesterday that a lot of moms that have ADHD themselves tend to have more kids because they just love the baby, and like there's just that feeling of being wanted and needed, even though it gets harder and harder every time you add another kid to the mix. I am not saying that I regret having any of my kids. I full-heartedly believe that God gave me every single one of them for a very important reason. And so we have ADHD, we have autism. I have kids that suffer from very, very high anxiety. Their sensory, like their nervous system, is extremely high. So just everyday tasks like clothing and materials, textures, becomes a very big deal. Makes it hard to find clothes. I have now just discovered I have one child that has tics that could possibly turn into Tourette syndrome. We're finding about it now, so that's good. So they're on medication for that, so hopefully it helps to control some of that. So there's that, and we also are dealing with BPD. BPD is borderline personality disorder. A lot of people get misdiagnosed with bipolar disorder when it's actually presenting as the BPD. And the reason why people get it mixed up or they get misdiagnosed is because bipolar is a mood disorder. So when you're bipolar, you can be, there's bipolar 1 and there's bipolar 2. So I could have it backwards, I can't remember. I think bipolar 1, I believe, is when you're going to like a manic state, and it could be for a couple weeks at a time, and then you fall into the depressed state for a few weeks at a time. I think bipolar 2 it changes more often, it's not so long. Borderline personality disorder is not a mood disorder. It is a personality disorder, but people get it confused because of the mood swings. But a borderline's mood swings are very hard in the sense that you never know what is coming. They tend to take something that's happened to them, where somebody that doesn't have BPD, that situation might be hard, or they're sad about it, but it's like, okay. Or if you're bipolar, you might just go into a depressed state for weeks at a time, or become very manic. But with BPD, they don't know how to control those emotions, so they're like, the best way I can describe it is a light switch. On, off, on, off, on, off. And so they could be extremely angry or in a rage even. And then 20 minutes later, they could be like nothing happened. And it's scary for the person that has it and for the person on the outside. So when you're dealing with a child that's going through this, and it is hard to watch your child go through that, and as a parent you want to react, especially when you're dealing with rage. They are saying things, and it's just very hard. And I know there's support groups on Facebook for BPD. I don't like to join support groups on Facebook because they always end up in drama and people end up fighting on there. I feel like people don't talk about BPD as much because a lot of personality disorders end up where you can have narcissistic tendencies, antisocial tendencies. So a lot of parents like want to say that my kid or your loved one or your friend might be like have sociopathic tendencies or psychopathic tendencies. Those are really hard things to say out loud, especially if it's about your child. Not all people with BPD have those symptoms, but BPD can be coupled with those symptoms, and BPD can be coupled with ADHD as well. So we're dealing with that, and we're also dealing with a trauma, several traumas, actual traumas that happened in our family and that affected everybody. And so we also have some PTSD, some kids worse than others. For myself, that's why I'm in therapy, and my husband as well. And so to say that I'm overwhelmed sometimes would be an understatement. My mom actually said to me yesterday, "I don't know how you're even still standing." I said, "I don't know either, except that I have to be all of my kids' advocate right now because they all need help, and that's what I'm doing for them." And I told my mom, "I'm sure if you had known, if it had been, the information had been there, you would have done everything that you could have done to give me the help that I needed." And she started to feel bad. She's like, "I just thought sometimes that you were just kind of like a loner." I'm like, "It's okay, Mom. I was quiet. It was hard for me to make friends. I always felt like I didn't fit into any group because my brain was just wired different. And now that have information, I can see it in my sister, and I can see stuff in my dad and in my kids. So genetic is very real. My first two kids are from a different father. I don't know a lot about his family's background or mental health issues, but just going off of when I was married to him, some of the things that he did, I'm not talking about like just necessarily like bad things, just normal things I see in my two oldest. So I know like genetics definitely play a factor. And going back to the BPD, they used to not want to diagnose people under the age of 18. They would say they have traits. They are now saying that that's not always good to do, because that's like telling somebody or a child, hey, you broke your leg, but we can't treat you until you're 18 because we don't want to put a label on it. Sometimes when it's pretty severe, that label is necessary, because without that label, you're getting doors shut as far as treatment goes, or what can be done, or what resources there are. So I've been advised to maybe get retesting done so that we can actually get it, that it's not just traits. And with the PTSD and stuff, all my kids struggle and need to be in therapy as well. So I'm managing all of Kennedy's appointments that she has every week, because she sees a therapist, she sees a psychiatrist, she sees occupational therapist, she sees a behavioral therapist, she sees a speech therapist. That's just one child. That's one child. All my kids are needing therapy right now, plus med management, plus for myself, plus for my husband. So yeah, sometimes I ask God, why me? Like, sometimes I feel like I was being punished almost, like, can't do this. But maybe he's allowing this because I'm meant to help somebody else. Because sometimes it can feel really, really lonely. Especially with the personality disorders that nobody talks about, and especially with certain traumas that you can't talk about. You start to isolate, and you start to be afraid of things, and you start being afraid that people will judge you, think you're a bad parent. But maybe it's time we took the stigma off of those and opened up. So while I can't share too much, because some of those are not my stories to share, I'm praying that God can use me, and then maybe use my kids when they're comfortable to help other people, because it's way more common than you might think. And sometimes our household is so chaotic, and obviously I can't show those things on YouTube. I can't do that to my children, and I would never want to put that kind of thing out there. That's their stories, like I said. But it's hard, and it's raw, and it leaves me feeling sometimes very emotionally drained. I had the doctor tell me, one of the doctors that was dealing with one of my kids not too long ago, said a lot of times parents in these situations, even with just one kid, and they said, I've got 6 kids with special needs, that sometimes the parent ends up with a nervous breakdown, or the parent stops caring because caring stopped working. And neither one of those things is good. So even more important than me getting the therapy or taking time for myself, the most important thing that I can be doing for myself right now is to be in constant prayer and in the Word of God, because He's definitely using me And it's hard right now, but I have faith, and I hear him talking to me. And I just want you to know, if any of these feelings or things sound familiar, whether it's with yourself or a loved one, a child, relative, friend, they are very real, and you are not alone. And I really encourage you to seek treatment. I know a lot of people don't believe in taking meds or seeing therapists or overdiagnosing things, but sometimes it's necessary. So this is one of the reasons why I haven't posted as much as I have in the past, because my schedule is really hard right now, but it's also very necessary. Yesterday, after one of my kids' appointments, we had walked out to leave, and I hearing like whooshing in my ears. Kind of got like tunnel vision. I think I was gonna pass out. And I told my kids, I'm like, I have to sit down. I can't drive. And we had to sit about 20 minutes before I could leave, because it wasn't even anxiety. It was just, this is a lot. And my kids brought me some water. They asked me, do you want me to go get somebody or call Dad? And I said, well, let me just sit here and see how I feel. And after about 20 minutes, I felt fine, and I was able to drive home. I tend to, when I get this way, to pull away. Not only from therapy, but from my husband, from my mom and dad, from my sister. My in-laws, I stopped wanting to talk to people because of that fear of being judged or I failed somehow. But that's why I'm on here making this video, because that's the worst thing that you can do. First of all, you've got to pray, and you've got to give it to Jesus. Got to keep your eyes upwards, especially now with all this stuff going on in the world. And you've got to be in the Word of God. And you've got to get that support in place. Family, therapy, friends. And like for me, because I am older, so my parents are older, especially like my dad, he's 75 and he does not look 75 or act 75, but he is. So he comes from a generation where there was no mental health stuff. It was just, you do this, and if this doesn't work, then you ground them. And you guys know what I'm talking about. And my father-in-law as well. And sometimes even my husband can get that way. Maybe it's just a male thing. But when you're dealing with disorders, especially a disorder like BPD, the regular like disciplining, throw that out the window. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. You can ground them, you can take their door, you can do all that stuff. It will not work. Especially with kids with BPD. It doesn't work. So just like I read books with autism, and now I've got to read books now on Tourette's, and I need to get more information about how to handle sensory disorders, because that stuff's a little bit new to me. Kennedy has some of it, but I've got one kid that's has it pretty bad. BPD, I've found some books that the doctor recommended, and one of them I got at the library, but I'm going to purchase it because it's one of those books where you have to highlight stuff and take notes inside the book. I've read Stop Walking on Eggshells, which explains borderline personality disorder, but this one is Stop Walking on Eggshells for parents, and I'm almost through with it, and I've had it for 3 days. I'm already learning so much, especially how to talk to a child with BPD. It's all about validation. Validation, validation, validation. You have to validate the feeling, not the action, the feeling. So even if you don't agree with it or it doesn't make sense, that's okay, because it's not your feeling, it's theirs. But you have to validate it, because if you don't, then they feel like you don't care, and then rages happen, and suicide attempts might happen, and narcissism could happen, and manipulation starts happening, and enabling starts happening. I'm a huge enabler right now, and I'm learning that I am. Never thought I would say that, but I get so afraid of conflict and confrontation that it's easier to just give in, and that's not helping anybody. There's like a triangle thing I'm learning where there's the victim, the persecutor, and the enabler, and each family member plays a part. It's very informative, and I'm learning that PTSD is not just victims of war, or like somebody that's gotten kidnapped and held captive for a long time. It can be little traumas that stack up over time and snowball, and we've also had a couple big traumas as well as the little traumas, and so I'm learning about PTSD as well and how to manage those things. But Stop Walking on Eggshells for Parents is a good book. I've got 2 coming through Amazon that I could not find at the library. Tell you the names. Tell you the name of one that's coming. The Buddha and the Borderline. So I think this lady has severe BPD, and I think she's now a doctor. She now treats people with it. So something as she went to like join a Buddhist colony. I don't know what they're called. I don't know. The doctor that I spoke to said it was one of the best books he's read on BPD. Then I have another one coming, like when your child has BPD. So I haven't read those yet. And then I have some other ones that I checked out from the library. I haven't started those. I'm trying to get through this one first, and I am going to be purchasing that. And then I checked out books on PTSD and some more books on sensory issues and anxiety. And I'm going to start getting books on Tourette's. So she doesn't, my child doesn't have full-blown Tourette's. And that was another thing where you stereotype it, like you think of Tourette's as somebody's blurting out like cuss words all the time, and that's just a stereotype. I mean, there are people out there that it presents itself that way, but my child that has it is suffering from like facial tics. So, but if left untreated, it can get worse and potentially progress into the outbursts and stuff. My youngest has a little bit of that. When her medication starts to wear off, she'll spit. Not like spit on people, she just has a really hard time controlling those urges. So anyway, I was gonna make this video short and sweet, but instead it's just long and me crying, but it's very real. and I hope this helped somebody. If you would like to message me personally and want more information or just need somebody to talk to, I will link my email down below, and you can also direct message me on Instagram. My screen name on Instagram is DeVores Wild. My page on Instagram is set to private, so just add me. I'll probably recognize your name from YouTube. I have it set to private because I just get like some really weird people trying to follow me that I'm not comfortable with, so that is why. That's the only reason why I get afraid of my channel growing, because of creepiness. I don't know. Anyway, that is my video for today, and I hopefully have some fun videos coming up, some more pantry challenges. Well, I've never done like a challenge, but just trying to eat from our pantry. I bought some canned salmon and some canned sardines. My dad used to eat sardines when I was little. He'd make sardine sandwiches, I think with like mustard, and I was like, whoa. Like, it always looked so gross, but I was watching that Delish with the June lady I was telling you guys about, and she did this challenge where she asked her subscribers to give her their weirdest food combinations, and she picked the top 3 that she thought were the weirdest, and the top one was sardines dipped in condensed milk. Barf. Anyway, she tried it and she actually really liked it, and then she made it into like a meal where she fried the sardines with cornmeal and then put some sriracha in the condensed milk and something else, lemon or something, and made like this little dip, and it actually looked really good. I'm not going to make that, but I thought, you know what, I have actually never tried sardines. They looked gross. I was always too afraid to try them. I heard if you like salty stuff, that you probably would like them, and so I've been watching some YouTube videos on what to do with canned sardines and with canned salmon, and so I thought they were cheap, that I would try it out and see if I like it, because if I like it and some of the kids like it, because it's cheap and it keeps, like tuna, it would be something to consider stocking up in our pantry for emergencies, just for some more variety. So I think those videos are coming up. I think those would be fun to try on camera. Let me know in the comments if this was helpful at all. I'm sorry if it was triggering for anybody, and just for fun, let me know your weirdest food combinations. Don't really have one for myself. I used to like, I used to work at Denny's, and I loved their seasoned fries, and I would dip them in syrup. And I wasn't pregnant. It was just something that I liked to do. I had some pretty weird food combinations when I was pregnant, though. I liked dill pickle with egg yolk, like fried eggs. Sounds so nasty now. Anyway, let me know in the comment section. I love hearing from you guys. And again, we have a P.O. box, so if you want to drop us a letter, we love pen pals. We'll write you back. It might take me a little bit to write you back, or my kids, but know that I will. It's just, like I said, I have a lot going on. March is actually one of my harder months because all of my youngest stuff has to get renewed, because she has so many services. It eats up a lot of my time with appointments, because they're longer appointments as well. So okay, and I am looking forward to seeing John Mayer this month and having some time away. I think it's very important for me and Adam to have that, just because there's been so much going on. And if you could pray for my family, I appreciate it, and I'm praying for all of you, and just know that I love you and you're not alone. Chicken tendies.